Welcome to the November video for Life of a Farmer. November is a month on our farm where we tend to focus mainly on feeding and taking care of our livestock. We feed cattle year-round, but we do it the most in winter months like this one, which is why this month's video will cover the entire process of being a cattle farmer. Cattle are purchased year-round on our farm, but we feed the most in the winter, when we don't have to worry at all about our crops. The cost of what you pay for the cattle is extremely important. If you pay too much and the markets go down when you sell, you will lose money. But if you don't buy any cattle, you will lose the opportunity to make anything at all. The cattle are purchased either from our local sale barn or from independent buyers around the area. They are typically from a cow-calf operation where they were raised on pasture grass with their mama cows. When they arrive on our farm, they have only been weaned from their mamas for a few days, so it is important that we treat them well to help ease the transition. As you can see, the new cattle are greeted with a bunk full of hay and wheat midds, which are a byproduct of a local wheat mill. The smell of the hay helps alert the new cattle to the location of their food and helps teach them to come to the bunk to eat. Here is my dad loading a hay bale onto a trailer we use to feed the cattle. We like to use a cabless tractor with a real human pitching hay for the new cattle, as it helps them get used to us as their caretakers, which will prove to be useful in the long run when we have to handle them in the future. Besides hay, we give the new cattle a starter's ration of silage, a few buckets full of wheat midds, and a sprinkle of mineral supplements, which help give the cattle what they need for optimal growth and health. As you can see, the cattle really like what we feed to them, and a lot of times will come up to us and eat out of our hand. The next thing we must do to the new cattle that we receive is to vaccinate them so that they are less susceptible to sickness. Just as parents care deeply about their children, we are extremely concerned with the well-being of our cattle and want to make sure that they stay healthy during their stay at our feedlot. The cattle are herded into our working facilities and are then wetted with a solution of Poron that protects them from lice, worms, and hornflies. The cattle are also given several shots that protect them from various diseases. There is also an implant that is inserted into the ear of the cattle that improves weight gain and feed efficiency. Finally, an ear tag is placed on the cattle to identify them as ours and help us keep track of them. Although we treat our cattle with the utmost care, sometimes they do get sick. Preventing the spread of illness is critical to keeping our animals safe and healthy. If we didn't treat the illness, the cattle would suffer and possibly die. Just as a parent would take their children to the doctor when they are sick, it is more humane for us to treat a sick animal than to let it die or infect other animals. Our local veterinarian gives us all of the advice and materials needed to help the sick cattle get well. As you can see here, we will doctor them by using a specific antibiotic depending on what kind of sickness the animal has. The dose of antibiotic is based on the weight of the animal and percentage-wise is much lower than what humans use on themselves and their children. As you can see in this graphic, any animal that is treated with antibiotics on a cattle farm must be withdrawn from the antibiotic for a predetermined time before it enters the meat market to ensure that there is no residue left in the meat. The FDA has many regulations for us cattle farmers to follow, which is a lot of work for us, but it ensures that the meat you buy in the grocery store is safe and healthy to eat. Once the cattle have been on our farm for a few weeks, we will start to decrease the amount of starter's silage ration and begin to feed what we call the grower ration. The grower's ration and the starter's ration have similar materials. The first material is hay. Hay comes from the alfalfa we swathed and baled in the summer. The bales are ground into tiny pieces to make it easier to mix in the feed wagon. The second material is called corn distillers. Distillers grains are a high-protein, high-efficiency livestock feed that comes to our farm as a byproduct from a nearby ethanol plant. The final ingredient is corn silage, which we store in a large pile on our farm. The corn silage is simply chopped up corn plants that are preserved by the process of ensiling, which is explained in our September video of Life of a Farmer. We feed corn silage because it is high in energy and easy for the cattle to digest. When loading the feed wagon, the farmer must load the precise percentage of each material to ensure a balanced diet for the cattle. As spoken about earlier, the beginner's ration has different percentages of ingredients than the grower's ration. The grower's ration has a higher percentage of silage, which allows the cattle to grow faster, hence the name. Once the feed wagon is loaded and mixed, the farmer will feed precise amounts to each pen of cattle. The new cattle are in pens 1 to 3 and receive mostly a starter's ration. The older, larger cattle are in pens 4 to 10 and are given progressively more of the grower's ration each day.
Yeah, that smells good, don't it?
Here is what feeding cattle looks like from inside the tractor. Once a pen has been fed, the amount is written down so the farmer can keep track of what is fed each day. In the morning before chore time, the farmer will examine the bunks to see if the cattle have eaten what was given to them. If they have, the amount of feed they get will increase. If they haven't, it will be cut back. Knowing how much to feed each pen of cattle is largely helped by keeping each pen of cattle relatively the same size. This is done by regularly sorting the cattle into pens of the same weight and body shape. As you can see, my dad will sort the cattle, and I will open the gate either direction. The larger cattle will be placed in one pen, and the smaller cattle will be placed in another pen. Once we've finished sorting the cattle, each group is counted and then released back into a pen.
9, 50, 51, 52, 53, 54, 55.
Once the cattle reach pen 10 and weigh 800 to 900 pounds, we will load them back up in the semi and take them to market, where they will be sold to a finishing farm. Although we don't finish all of our own cattle, we do get a few butchered per year to provide us with some of our own steaks and burgers. Healthy, delicious, homegrown beef. Just another one of the perks of living the life of a farmer.